we have seen the best of tech entrepreneurs from Bengal.
Talking of transformative life journeys, let's come back to the emerging startup ecosystem of Kolkata. A startup that has established itself as a global leader in the realm of data intelligence, starting off its journey from Kolkata now, has its headquarters firmly planted in Singapore. They have embarked on a remarkable journey building some AI-enabled products for financial risk and fraud protection.
Let me call upon to discuss growth strategies for startups from two key people, one of whom has been a facilitator, Ms. Kritika Murugesan, Senior Director, nasscom, and the other who has been a part of the journey, Mr. Abhishek Chatterjee, Founder and CEO, Tookitaki.
Thank you. And clearly Abhishek and me are standing between all of you and dinner. So we'll do this a little differently, right? Firstly, how many of you have received a call or have known somebody to have received a call which says that, which is asking you to transfer a money to some account or, click on some link or something in terms of some kind of fraud? How many of you have been part of this?
Wow, it's
okay. Mostly, most people, right? Now, how many of you are entrepreneurs here in the room? And how many of you want to be entrepreneurs in the room? Okay, quite a few. So with that, I have a very interesting, I would say literally a personality with me here. Because, I was reading his profile, and apart from everything that he does, I think his journey pretty much started with a very bold ambition to redefine the anti-financial crime landscape, literally, right? So more than me talking about what Tookitaki does, which was founded in early 2015, I'd really like to hear you talk to a bit of our, talk a bit about to our audience on what you actually do and where did this start?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, to invite me here. It's great to be here. And I'm glad to be back in Calcutta after 4 years. So I'm really enjoying this. A bit of my background, 6-7 years back, I was a banker in New York in JP Morgan. I used to be part of interest rate swap desks. I really enjoyed it because I come from an applied math background, but deep inside, I really wanted to build something meaningful in life. And I always thought of what could I do something which can have an impact. I don't know if you all know, right? Money laundering is a $3 trillion business for the bad actors. Every bad activity that is being done, the money that comes from is actually laundered. So it's a pretty significant problem that exists today. So when I came across the problem as a banker, I knew that that was a problem that I wanted to solve. So I came back from New York and started Tookitaki with the core insight, can I build something meaningful, which is not just a business, but a mission to solve a problem that can have impact to almost every person in the world. So that's how Tookitaki started. It was 2014-15. We raised a seed capital, started building the product. It took us a couple of years to build the product. 2019, we raised a large 19 million Series A, grew the business literally from 0 to 10 plus million. And now we are at a stage where we can literally in a direction to a $100 million ARR. So a long journey over the last 7 years. But happy to share my journey and contribute to building an ecosystem here in Kolkata as well.
Thank you, Abhishek. I think this is a good opportunity then me, railing off a series of questions to Abhishek. I would really want to see if there are more questions from the audience that you would like. You've been through a lot of sessions during the day, and I thought this is a good opportunity for some of the entrepreneurs here to ask him some questions directly. And if there are no questions, then I will ask him a bunch of questions. But here's a good opportunity to ask him questions on how did he raise money, how does he handle his team, how is he growing his team, the culture, blah, blah, blah. Any questions that you would have from the audience? Yeah, sure.
So you are in a regulated space predominantly now, right? So from that standpoint, how did you kind of align to the regulations? Because from an organization standpoint, that is something comes sometimes with some caveats.
Right. So financial crime or money laundering, what we call as, okay. Financial crime or money laundering is what we call as 7 predicate offense, which means that whatever crime that happens which can be criminally suable is part of what our software detects. For it could be corporates, it could be banks, it could be any financial institution per se. Now to answer your question, what the global body UN talks about is you need to detect, if there is a money laundering happening, if there is a child trafficking happening. It's less of regulation, more of detecting something that will have impact to human society. So our software is enabling corporates to stop that criminal activity across the globe. So it's less of regulation, more of detection and prevention, and making this world a safer place. You want to know some real case? That's fine. So I'll give you a real case. For instance, 3 years back, one of my friends, he used to work at my friend's place. He was a plumber. He saw an ad on Facebook, and the ad basically said that you can get a cash rebate, and this was in Singapore. He was using one of the banks. This was late night. He clicked the Facebook ad. He went to a website, and the website exactly replicated a bank that was the bank that he was using. He entered the details, and within 5 minutes, all his money gone. Like whatever he has earned over the last 5 years staying in Singapore, everything washed out. Now that is what we call in money laundering terms placement. What basically means the bad actors are using these sort of people to hijack money across the ecosystem. Now once they have this money, they actually transfer it into a legitimate bank account, and from there they actually sort of send it to countries where certain nefarious activities would take place, like terrorist financing or anything. So it starts from hijacking, scamming people, legitimate people of their money, transferring it to the bank, making it real, and then pushing it to activities which will impact society in a large scale way. So that's a real story that we could share. So our software plays in multiple areas. Number one, especially for fintechs, they use us to prevent these set of scams happening. So that's one area. Second, banks, regulators, we work with a lot of the regulators who use us to understand broad parameters of money flowing in and out to terrorist organisms. And third, we work with corporates to understand, are they making vendor payment, merchant acquiring to any of these corporates, which then can lead to what we call as proliferation financing, which is financing related to drug money or weapons of anything of that sort. So we work with multiple regulatory bodies, corporates, as well as fintechs to sort of provide them the capability to detect and prevent money laundering at every stage of the process.
That means you have access of all these transactions.
Yes, we do have a lot of access to data as well as information that I am not able to share in this forum.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me? Here.
Thank you. How did you arrive at the name Tookitaki?
I mean, that's a great conversation starter, to be honest. My VCs, when I raised $1 million, it was Enterprise Singapore. They told me to change the name. It's a Bengali word for hide and seek, lukochuri, right? So we are finding a needle in the haystack. And what the criminals are trying to do is trying to hide through noise, data, everything. And we are still trying to figure that out, and that was the parlance. And interestingly, right, when I raised my Series A and then eventually the Series B, every time I raised around, my VCs told me, you have to change the name. But I said, I won't change the name. Go and ask my clients. What do they feel about it? And 100% of my clients love the name. It has such a high recall. that everybody loved it. And hence, it's been there for 7 years, and it's a great conversation with my clients.
Okay, I'm going to sneak in a question now before the next one comes. Abhishek, I'm really intrigued by, you've done fundraising at various stages, right? So, for a lack of a better way of asking, I'd say, how did you know, or when, how did you know when you should raise money and how? Were you getting some advice? How did you go through that process?
Right. So we raised significant across the board, like, we raised 19 million and then 25 million, and then we kept on raising. But fundamentally, I believe that as an entrepreneur, your goal is not to raise the money. Your goal is to actually do the business in a sustainable, profitable way, right? But we always get enamored by fundraising. Whoever raises more money gets more PR, and it's a cool thing to do. But fundamentally, I believe that until and unless you know what you need to do with the money, that money is going to end. But if you don't have customers, then your business is going to end. And that's what really happens. Because if you raise a Series A, the expectation of your investors would be you need to build at least 3-4x business so that you can do a Series B. And for between every raise, it's only 18 to 24 months. So whatever you raise, it'll only cover 24 months. By that time, if you can't go to a Series B level industry matrices, you will die. So the best benchmark is, would you know that with this money, can you go to the next step? If you cannot go to the next step, don't raise.
Right. On that, any... Yeah, okay.
Thank you. What will it take for you to come back to Kolkata?
It's a great question. I've been...
That was my closing question. I'll close this soon.
I've been trying to come back to Kolkata for almost a couple of years now. Honestly, like when I raised my first round, I was literally forced out of Calcutta because the deal was I cannot build a business here. For better or worse, that kept a mark on me, and I do want to come back because the problems that we solve, we have meaning my background before JP Morgan, I used to work in Google. So we hire a few of the best engineers in Singapore and that market. When I first started coming back to thinking about opening up a center, primarily engineering, machine learning engineers, it was quite difficult for me to hire and build up a center here. And that's why I moved to some other locations, Philippines and others. But given a chance, I would really want to come back and build a center. And we are growing. We are currently around 150 odd people, and we'll probably touch 200 in the next by next year. But if there is an opportunity, I can build it. I would love to do that because that's the goal.
We look forward to that because the promoter is a Bengali. The name of the company is a Bengali name. So.
Yeah, actually that, Abhishek, leads me to another question, right? On the whole talent piece, right? There is, I'm sure you need very niche kind of talent and very high-end kind of talent. So one, where are you finding your talent right now, and how are you seeing India emerge in that talent space? And then I'm going to ask you about, what do you think about work from home, right? Because there's a lot of buzz about that as well in the ecosystem, and I'm not a great proponent of it. Let me put that on the table. But yeah, sorry, too many questions. But to start with, where are you seeing your talent and what kind of talent?
So I'll take a step back here because one of the things that I, as an entrepreneur, always learned the hard way is things what not to do rather than things to do. Because if you really know what not to do, you will survive. So one of my learnings of what not to do is just hiring talent with their past degree or where they come from doesn't really work out if you don't belong to a specific stage of your entrepreneurial journey. Just looking at CVs or you just get enamored and hired, and it doesn't really work out. So one of my what not to do's is don't just hire on the pedigree, hire people on what he or she is fit at that stage. Now, fundamentally, the way we look at it is there are two ways to hire. One is you bring in somebody with a specialty that is going to help you for the next 18-24 months, and then the person goes. The other is you bring an exceptionally talented person and just tell them that, hey, here is what, there are so many problems, go and solve it. Both has worked well for us. If there are cases where it's a very open-ended problem and a very talented person, it could be in HR. It is something that, as entrepreneurs, we don't prioritize. But if you don't have the right people's office very early on, the culture doesn't get built. And what do you mean by culture? Culture is the people that you hire. The culture is when you make a decision, people around you look at you. And then that becomes a process in your company. If you don't do it when you are like 5, 10 people, when you become 100, nothing will change, right? So from a hiring perspective, I just think that it's all about hiring the right people which fits that stage, and not to think about the pedigree that that person comes from.
No, that's a very, very, very interesting perspective. So I'm still going to ask that question, right, on work from home, because we are seeing here why in India, across regions, about a lot more ask for work from home, right?
Meaning there is a personal view and there is my, corporate, that's what my people office will say, right? My personal view, at least in the places that we are trying to build office in the US, in Singapore, I strongly believe that people should come to office literally every day, because the amount of time we spend sort of replying to a message, like if you ask somebody and he's working from home, you get a reply after 30 minutes, and then again you reply after 45 minutes, meaning you are only 50% productive. So personally, I believe that we should all come back to office, work together, build that culture, build that community, and that's when great things happen. I personally, I don't believe in, but of course, we have a policy which we follow in, which is couple of days where we have to come to office, couple of days where we have work from home. But I personally will really proponent that people should come and work in the office. But this is my personal view.
No, that's a good view. And the entrepreneurs in the room, any questions? You're not going to get a chance very often like this. Does anyone want to ask him what were 2 of his most challenging moments as an entrepreneur?
When you want
yeah, I'm asking you now. Since they are not asking, I'm going to ask you that. What was 1 or 2 of your most challenging moments as an entrepreneur? I'm sure the journey has not been easy.
Meaning, I think as an entrepreneur, right, you have to accept that things will get tough. And then that's when you stick it around, right? Because if you, meaning that's a famous saying that most of the companies die of suicide than homicide. Because when things get tough, people just give up. In Tookitaki's journey, I think there were many such cases, right? It could be COVID, when we just raised our Series A, we had big plans, and then the world stopped. Our revenue literally flattened out, which was supposed to be growing almost 2x or 3x every year. It was a tough time, but then we again came back. We started targeting a different set of businesses, and then we again started to grow almost 2 to 3x every year. So that was a tough time. But I just think that as entrepreneurs, things will always be tough, and we should be okay to accept that situation, that being uncomfortable is okay, and that's that's the path that we have chosen. As long as we believe in the mission, it's only us that gives up and then we fail. If we don't give up, there's nothing stopping us to building a business that can really make an impact. Personally for me, right, I believe that, and this is something that we were discussing for India, right, one of the things is, can software contribute $1 trillion to the Indian economy? And for software to contribute $1 trillion, you need at least couple of $1 billion ARR business. Now, to build $1 billion ARR business, you need at least, couple of thousand, 100 million ARR business. India has to go a long way to do that. So, yeah, that's what I strongly believe in.
Thanks. You, Sukrit, just one. She has a question. Please. Yeah, just give her the mic.
Hello. Actually, I have 2 questions. First, being an entrepreneur, we have the idea. But without a good team, we cannot promote, right? We cannot build up our thoughts. So the first challenge that we face is that why I will join a startup company instead of going to the good banners. Okay, so how recruitment was easy for you? And second thing, like as you are a young individual with lot of success, what we find, like we started our entrepreneur journey at the age of 23. So mainly during the time of hiring, the most difficult thing we found that these are young faces. So they cannot be the CEO or MD. So how it was easy for you? Because we face the same thing, that's why I'm asking.
It's not easy, to be honest, right? So, meaning entrepreneur is tough, so nothing is easy. But to answer your question, right, there was a great quote. Mark Zuckerberg was a great talent magnet, and Reid Hoffman wasn't that as great. That's why people say that LinkedIn could have been more valued than Facebook than what it is. So as entrepreneurs, you need to be a talent magnet, period. Whatever you need to do, please do that. Create your brand profile, do whatever you need to do, because that's the crux of the matter is. It's going to be extremely difficult, but if you create a brand of your own, that problem goes away. So a lot of my initial days, whatever you're good at, right? You need to come across as a subject matter expertise. You need to come across that passionate that you are what you believe in. And then you start attracting talent. And once you start attracting talents, it's a domino effect. So I would say invest in yourself. That actually creates a difference.
Yeah, no, I'm totally loving this conversation, but I think there's another question there.
So just wanted to check, a lot of startups, they actually come up with an exit plan much before they actually go to that next level. So how do you look at that scenario?
Meaning, I don't know why startups do that. Is it because VCs force them to do it, or would it because...
The founders make the money.
Meaning, the reality is, how many founders in India has successful exits? Meaning, so fundamentally, that's the debate is. But taking a step back, right, I think fundamentally there are two things that entrepreneurs need to realize is, we are in the process of doing a business. So as long as we can build a sustainable business, money will come. You cannot hijack the process of making money without building a sustainable business. That is the most fundamental ABCs of building a business. So I would say, meaning this is a lot of the times I tell people not to do is, don't think about the exit, think about, can you build a sustainable business?
So just aligning to that question, how do you influence the VCs? Because they may have some vested interest way before you anticipate the growth. They are looking at it from a market standpoint. At many instances that has happened in the past. And they will have an exit plan forced onto the founders sometimes.
Meaning you can answer, but in Indian VCs don't really force people. Meaning that's a perception.
On records, no?
No, it is. I'll tell you, just yesterday I was in this meeting on, a lot of you would have heard of this thing called Startup Genome. They do a startup ranking across the world. City-wise ranking or region-wise ranking, not country-wise, but more state-wise. So Bangalore is ranked 20th in that ranking. And somebody like Amsterdam is ranked 2. And Liverpool in Toronto, Waterloo in Toronto, is 3rd. And then so we were digging more and saying, what are your parameters? And saying, why are we 20th? Why is Bangalore 20th? And why is NCR 24th? Because they're only measuring on exits. I think, but the India startup story is not about exits. It is a lot about job creation. It is a lot about innovation, solutions that solve for local problems. So if you're measuring an India story by exits, I don't think that's a parameter that's not so much for us. And there's documented evidence if you go back and see that our exits are less, right? And especially in the B2B businesses, and it is a revenue stream, and continuous revenue building. So.
Meaning for me, right, the way for us Tookitaki is less of a business, more of a mission to make impact. And for me, I personally believe in making that impact to contributing to that 1 trillion contribution. So we're going to continue and really build a large business and hopefully IPO in NASDAQ. That's our vision.
Yeah, and that's something that's got my attention about Abhishek as well, because I think you're one of the very few people who talks a lot about AI and collaboration overall, right? And like it seems to be the fundamental gene of from where you started, and I think that's extremely very motivating to see somebody at your age and think through this so much and be such a big collaborator. On that note, yeah, surprisingly we've run out of time. But I do want to end this conversation, Abhishek, with where you're sitting and from where you're seeing, right? AI has been at core at what you do, right? So your quick take on the whole Gen AI piece and, how do you see this?
Right. So we talk about, meaning when we talk about Gen AI, we can talk about LLMs and all this stuff, right? Fundamentally, at least from our take, there are multiple things that we are working on. One is building a foundational model on top of an existing foundational model to specifically cater to detecting fraudulent scenarios. So we are collecting data and we are sort of working with a lot of the regulatory bodies around the world who are sponsoring the compute power. Because the problem that we are trying to solve is not just can be solved by corporates, but industry as a whole. So there will be cases where very specific foundational model on specific fraud AMLs will be built. And that's an area that we are actively researching and working on. So you will see a lot of research coming out in the next couple of years.
Brilliant. And on that note, our time is up, and we can catch him outside if you have more questions or answers to something that you're seeking. But thank you so much, Abhishek, and I'm sure we all here will wait for your return back soon and see you setting up something soon here. And on that note, thank you again very much.
Thank you very much, and I really want to come back. So yeah, so look forward to all of your help to making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, speakers. And I would say that as a founder, I could correlate to it more than anything. And I would just request
Mr. Pulak Chamaria, Director of Infinity Group, kindly come up to the stage, sir, and hand over a memento.